Welcome to the Eventual Millionaire podcast with your host, Jaime Tardy. Real talk and real advice from real millionaires with a sharp focus on you, the eventual millionaire.
Welcome to Eventual Millionaire. I'm Jaime Tardy, and today we have Nicole Wright on the show. I'm really excited. She's a serial entrepreneur. She's had a bunch of different companies, and the one we'll primarily focus on is foodbodymE.com. They do yoga and meditation and cooking classes, tons of really cool stuff. She's also really analytical, so I'm really excited to talk to her today. Thanks so much for coming on the show, Nicole.
Great. Thanks, Jaime.
So let's actually get into it because you've created quite a few different businesses. Tell me about your first business and how you started that and how long ago it was.
Sure. In college, I was studying psychology and I wanted to be a therapist, and I was convinced that was my path. However, it was very, I really enjoyed working with my clients, but their families were crazier than they were. And I was so young. It was very stressful for me. And so while I concurrently had full-time therapy positions, I also was in finance as an accounting manager. And I loved it. I loved consulting with those clients. When I told them 1 + 1 = 2, I got no pushback. So that was really beneficial and helpful for me to have that analytical side of my brain and to just to work with money. I mean, there's really amazing financial principles that I was really grateful to learn from a young age. And so when I was 23, I mostly just was fed up with corporate politics, and I just a little bit disillusioned by it. So I actually did not follow my own advice. I had no savings. I had no plan. I just was so passionate that I just had to make a shift. And so I took a month off. Mm-hmm. I traveled. I wrote. I just kind of did everything to nourish my soul. And then just after I had turned 24, I created my finance firm. And then I began consulting for tech companies, and that afforded me a very luxurious lifestyle. Ooh. And it all happened just in the blink of an eye.
Well, it sounds a little crazy because you're 23 and you're doing sort of two things. You have a totally different path, going to be a therapist, and then you just totally changed direction into finance, which is two very different things. Did you have any trepidations, or were you worried about anything? Was it really weird going, because you went to school for that, right? And then you veered off to something else completely different.
I was doing both. I feel very lucky. My parents are business owners. My grandparents are business owners. My mother, it was very important for her to educate us. So on both sides of my family, they're in real estate. And so my mom, she owned multiple houses. And, when I was 12, she had me balancing her checkbook, and she had me reading contracts before she would buy a new home. And so, I was very familiar with the business world, and I just preferred therapy. But again, it was just emotionally, I wasn't mature enough to deal with clients' issues. And finance was really safe, and I knew a lot about it, and I enjoyed it. It's kind of nice to be young and right about things.
So how did you take that? How did you start your own firm? At least you had a good core background, is what it sounds like. But what did those first few months of starting your own firm look like?
It was impossibly easy.
What? Wait.
I really believe that when things are right, they just kind of manifest. And so I already had a 5-year background in accounting management. So you learn to be very good at sales and selling yourself. So I found a real estate client who needed financial advisement. And I signed a contract with them, and they wanted to pay me X amount. And I had just finished reading Win-Win Career Negotiations. Ooh. And I told them that what they wanted to pay me wasn't enough. I told them that I wanted actually $25,000 more. And because I had just read that book, I used like all my tactics, and they ended up giving me like a $25,000 bonus. It was pretty phenomenal.
One book. All right, everyone's gonna write down that book and go use it too. That's awesome. So why did it seem so easy for you? Just because you had done it before, you were in sales, you knew how to get clients before?
That's a good question. I think experience and knowledge makes it easy. And I think the more experienced and talented we get, perhaps the more self-doubt that we might have. And so we kind of maybe mentally program ourselves that we think it's going to be harder. But, when it's in alignment, when we really can back up what we think we can do, then I think it just comes together pretty naturally.
Yeah, I mean, I can hear the confidence. You're like, I asked for $25,000 more for one of my first clients, which is not exactly something that most people would go to when they're, nervous or scared or anything like that. So that's awesome. How big did you grow that, and how long? Sort of tell us about the growth of that.
Oh, Wright Financials was absolutely is amazing company. I grew at 15% every single year, and that at the most magnificent point, I actually took a year off to write a book, and I had a private chauffeur, and I had a private chef. And I had a home in Santa Cruz and in San Francisco, and my company had just really afforded me quite a luxurious lifestyle. And
wow,
that was fantastic. That was fantastic.
And you were in your mid-20s at that point, or how old were you?
I was, and it was so funny when I went to Santa Cruz to write my book. I still was doing like just a little bit of consulting, but at that point, I had just amassed so much wealth that I didn't really need to. I called. I had worked for I'd worked for Ann Mitchell for 5 years in her tax office, and I asked her if I could be her intern, and I wanted to work for her for free, and she laughed at me and she said, Nicole. My firm has way too many clients, and you're not an intern. I'm going to go ahead and start sending you my overflow. And so she started sending me all of her tax clients that she couldn't handle because she had such esteem for me. She had more esteem for me at that point than I had for myself.
Okay, so tell me about and I don't know if you're okay with sharing numbers, but either how many employees you had in how many years, maybe revenue if you're okay with sharing that. What did the company look like that way in numbers?
I'm definitely guilty of underbilling myself for sure. So Wright Financials was just me doing consulting, and I had a range. I billed clients anywhere between $12 to $120 an hour, and in San Francisco area it's about normal to go ahead and invoice a client about $50 an hour for finance. And so I think the most I've had a few clients where I've charged them $300 an hour because they really esteemed my expertise.
Yeah.
But, I was still struggling with my own self-worth. And there were some clients that I just charged $12 an hour.
Really? Oh, that's good to hear. Okay, good. So it's not like, oh, I'm great and I knew, I was worth $300 an hour right out of the gate. So that's really interesting. How did you, well, and it's funny. So you did that. How long was Wright Financials around for?
I started that in 2006 and it's still going. And actually, I 2010 and 11 and 12, I've had to turn away a lot of clients because I just couldn't handle the work. However, I've just accepted like 6 new clients, and basically every single week, people are actually scouting me out and contacting me and asking me to help them with their startups. So I'm kind of transitioning back to do more finance work.
Interesting. Do you have other people working though on that, or is it just you?
I do have one employee, but for some reason, I like to do a lot of the work myself. With Food Buddy Me, I don't like to do the work myself. I like to outsource it.
Really?
But with Wright Financials, I get a lot of satisfaction from doing the work by myself.
Okay, so tell me, so you did Wright Financials and that was going. How did you transition into something new? Because it sounds like you really enjoy that. It gave you a great income. What made you change from that?
Yeah, I think it was this constant struggle for me with corporate politics. I just don't think corporate politics are ethical. I have a lot of ethical issues. with corporations in general. And so, historically, I have worked for companies that are socially helpful. There just seems like there's always problems at work, and it was sort of similar when I was a therapist, and my clients' families were crazier than my schizophrenic clients were. And I just didn't want it. I just didn't believe that life needed to be that way. And so while things might go really smooth at a corporation for a year, inevitably some kind of like drama would come up, and I just wanted to get out of that world. So in 2010, I very disillusioned with corporate politics yet again. And I took some time off. I was a consultant, and so I essentially told my boss that I was going to work from home for a month. And subconsciously that was my way of quitting, although I wasn't that in touch with myself at that point. So I bought a train ticket, and I went around the country, and I had already seen most of America, but I really wanted to travel by train, and I really wanted to see all the places that I hadn't seen yet. So I had a lot of money and a lot of time, and I took off, and I traveled, and I explored, and any city that was fascinating for me, I stopped and hung out and made new friends, and I went on retreat. And then I came home, and I was still working for this company. It's when you become a certain level, when you gain a certain level of expertise, it's kind of amazing what people will put up with.
They're like, no, we love you. It's okay. We love you. Okay.
So I came home, and I guess maybe being like a therapist had always kind of haunted me. It had always kind of been like something that I hadn't followed through with when I was younger. And I thought that I maybe had more maturity to kind of deal with emotions at that point. So I went to Hypnotherapy Training Institute, which is a world-renowned. It's the number one hypnotherapy graduate school in the country, and I just did an immersive 5-week program, and I earned 3 postgraduate certificates in hypnotherapy. And it was just like night and day. Like when I was working with finances, I felt really amazing for helping companies succeed. Small businesses are really important to me. But when I was working with people about with their subconscious minds and just helping them heal themselves, there's just a completely different reward. And so I got so inspired that I decided to create Food Body Me. And I actually created 3 companies within 30 days. And it's been really intense since then.
Okay, tell me about that first, right? So this is 2010-ish. What made you decide to do 3 companies in 30 days? And what did that look like?
I just, maybe I was a little bit overconfident. It was intense. I generally have more energy than more people. I'd already been doing finance for startups, so I already had all the background and all the knowledge. To me, it just seemed like a great idea. And I definitely underestimated how much exhaustion that would bring to my life. But financially, it's been a really good move for me.
So tell me about the 3. Like, how did you figure out what those 3 were, what you were going to move forward, if there was even a market for it? Like, what was that beginning time like for you for those 3?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, so I had just gotten my 3 postgraduate certificates in hypnotherapy, so I started a hypnotherapy practice. So that company is actually just like my company. It's like a gift I give to myself. So I'm not really concerned about revenues for that company. It's just something that nourishes my body and soul. I created a real estate company to provide rent for a space for other practitioners. A lot of practitioners just starting out can't afford an office, and so they need to rent by the hour, and they feel really overwhelmed, and there's a lot of self-confidence issues. Mm-hmm. And I knew just a lot of therapists, and so I wanted to create a space where they could rent a therapy office for $10 and come see their client. It just take a lot of the fear out of the equation. And then additionally, my family are real estate business owners, and it's a good market to be in. And then Food Body Me is a holistic lifestyle. And I just heard from so many people that You cannot be profitable while doing something that's good for humanity. And and it's not true. You can have socially responsible companies and maintain profitability. So I guess Food Body Me was kind of my way of giving back. And also I had amassed so much wealth that I was going to have a very significant tax burden. And when you go ahead and put that money into a new company instead, you kind of can make it go away. So it was a financial decision, but also something that I can go to sleep at night feeling really amazing about what I'm doing.
Okay. So do you mind telling us, like, how much did you put into Food Body Me to get it started? And why don't you sort of tell us exactly what you do, right? What generates revenue in Food Body Me?
Sure. So Food Body Me is a lifestyle for the body and mind. It's designed around holistic health. So the aspects of health are eating good food, detoxing, doing physical movement, and also making sure that your mind is good with meditation. So we provide celebrity chef cooking classes. We do juice cleanses. We do donation-based yoga and also meditation. So it's kind of like the complete package for whole health. So I started the company with $40,000 of my own cash, and the very first month in business, we did 60,000 in sales.
Ooh, let's talk about that. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
We did $1 million in sales the first year.
All right, so let's get into that because so you had 40,000 because you had this tax burden, and you're like, okay, we're going to invest it into a company and grow it. Of course, it's funny that you made more. But where did that $40,000 go? Like, do you remember? I know this was a couple of years ago, but do you remember what exactly did you get?
The 40,000, a lot of it, like half of it, went to the space. Getting the space, it was very scary. It was like my first. It's really like the most money I'd ever invested before, and it was my own. I had to take all the responsibility, and so about 20,000 went into the space. It was really scary. I mean, my space rent is 60,000 a year, not to mention insurance and cleaning. I mean, that's the amount of money that people's salaries are, and that's the amount of money that I'm paying for my company. It's a big commitment.
Yeah, it does seem like it. So how did you justify that? Did you do a lot of research beforehand to know that, hey, this is good, I'm going to make more than this, definitely?
I'm very intuitive when I make business decisions, and I kind of just go with my gut, and it's really paid off for me. So.
Okay, awesome. So what did you do, right? So 20 of it went to the space. Let me know what the other 20 went for and how like you grew that big in 1 month.
Right. So the other 20,000 just went to salaries and operational expenses.
Okay. So how did you get 60,000? I mean, did any of it go into marketing, or did you just open the doors and people just flooded in?
Yeah, 30% to go to marketing.
Okay.
So we did so our company is based on pre-sales, and so we pre-sell our product before we provide the service. And we did online marketing. We started with a Living Social deal, and so we got 497 clients, within 24 hours of opening our doors. And then since that's all pre-sales, then we basically just scheduled them over the next upcoming months so that we could get them in the door and take care of them.
Okay, what did you have for products and services when you first launched?
It was just celebrity cooking classes. And so we're the only Bay Area. So there's a lot of cooking classes, and actually, with all of the cooking televisions, reality shows on TV, there's tons of small businesses doing cooking classes in the Bay Area. We're the only one who does it with celebrity chefs.
Okay.
And it's like a novelty. So, I get to hang out with celebrities every week, and clients want to do it too. Like, their heroes they see on TV, they can actually come and cook directly with them.
So, okay, I have to ask, how did you get them, right? How did you get to have them be part of, especially if you did you have any contacts with anyone beforehand?
I guess I just did it. I posted ads for celebrity chefs, and I got most of them through Craigslist, and I think that when you work with people, you get to know like who's a con artist and who isn't.
Okay.
And so when you see like video submissions, when you're hiring, you can kind of tell who has clout and who doesn't.
Okay.
And then also when somebody gets to a certain affluent status, then it's really easy to check out their background online. And so I mean the Bay Area is just got a lot of experts and a lot of famous people, and so it was actually extremely easy to get chefs that had clout as celebrities.
Okay, so how do you define like a celebrity chef? Like who do they have to work for? Like that sort of thing. How do you define that? I like using air quotes.
A celebrity chef is a chef who's worked with celebrities.
Yep.
My current chefs, I've got Larry. My top two chefs are Larry Keck. So Larry Keck is a premier chef, actually nationally. He just won some award. He was like, the judges voted him the best chef in America.
Wow.
And then we've also got John Cacon, and John Cacon, you can see him on the red carpet. He's got his own restaurant in Fremont. So he's just, basically Larry Keck and John Cacon. You can, they're world-renowned chefs. They're pretty amazing.
Okay. How do you get them? Do you have to just pay them more money? Like if they already have so many things going on, what made them say yes to you?
My personality.
They just love me. That's why. No.
No, it really. I mean, it really is a personality equation. I mean, they know that we're a startup. So the finances are very tight. The budget's strict, and I just exude so much passion and love for what I'm doing, and I guess they respect me. Which feels a little weird. Like I respect them so much, but I guess they respect me too. So they're really good guys. They really will do a lot for me. I'm really impressed with them.
Really impressive. So you post on Craigslist something like, "Oh, I'm looking for celebrity chefs, so we don't have a lot of money," and you got a ton of responses from that too.
Right.
Really impressive. Okay, so after your first month, you grew to $1 million in a year. So take me through what happened and that growth.
Oh, that's a great question. 20-hour days, we went 30 team members. We, creating operational manuals, just basically just creating systems for every aspect of the company so that it could be replicated very easily. So it was really intense. It's a lot of work. We my background's in startups, and at the end of our first year, we were where most companies are at in year 3, and that basically happened just because I essentially didn't sleep for a year. I just worked and worked and worked and worked.
Okay, tell me what didn't go well, because it's funny because I'm hearing you and you're like, oh, the first company was easy. This company, oh, everybody just said yes and it was amazing and wonderful. And I know that it all couldn't have been amazing and wonderful, right? And I'd love to hear from you specifically, like what didn't go well? What obstacles did you have to like push through in order to get where you are today?
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah, Food Body Me was extremely difficult. So, working obsessively was, put a great strain on my health. When we had a number of setbacks. The very first chef that I hired was a world-renowned celebrity, and I had met him at graduate school, and he ended up being a con artist. And he asked me to pay a salary in advance, and I'm just like, we went to graduate school together. He's a therapist. I trust him. And he ended up taking his check and then disappearing. So I had to really scramble to find a new chef, and the money that I had enough money to float the company for a year, and then all of a sudden we were in a huge deficit, like right off the bat. So that was probably the biggest challenge. And then the other thing is when, I'm really interested in alternative diets, and coming from Santa Cruz, I had been a vegetarian and vegan, and raw vegan was a huge movement in San Francisco, and I became a raw vegan, and raw vegan is an extremely dangerous diet, and I got extremely sick and I almost died. And so I had to go to a lot of specialists. I had to start eating meat and dairy again. And, when you're coming from like a vegan perspective, that was a huge psychological switch for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it took me 2 years to heal, because the raw vegan had just devastated my body so much, and so I had less capacity for my startup because I was just dealing with some pretty severe health issues.
Okay, that's really interesting. So I'm assuming you don't recommend that, and especially since you're dealing with health and everything. How long were you doing the raw vegan before you?
I did it for 6 months, and I almost died within 6 months. It was very, very serious.
That's insane. Okay. Well, good that you can teach other people, considering the type of company that you have. You can teach other people probably not to do it if it didn't work out so well for you. So what did you do from there? Like, you've got you're working 20 something hours a day. Actually, let me ask you this. How productive were those 20 hours a day? We hear people working this much all the time. How productive were they?
That's a great question. So one of the last companies I consulted for at Right Financials was Joby Energy. And Joby Energy is just an amazing idea. It was basically a technology startup which wanted to make green, sustainable energy, and they hired like literally the 50 smartest people in the world. It was extremely like people that were NASA ranked. It was extremely intimidating working for them. It just like, was I good enough to even be there? And John Green was one of the consultants, and he talked about production. So essentially, if you go from 8 to 12 hours, then you actually increase productivity. But from 12 to 16, the additional 4 hours, nothing gets done.
Ooh.
And so, just like the brain just shuts down. So for me, I guess I just have a different style. So if I feel like I need to take a break, I'll take a break. But for me, so if I'm not creating something efficiently, then I'll stop working. But sometimes there's a lot of like neuro-linguistic programming tricks and techniques. So I'll go into like a program in my brain, and then I can work up to 20 hours and be extremely effective and efficient. But if that efficiency drops at all, then I'll just like, take a break to reset. And I think that's a rare talent. I think you have to read a lot of business books and do neurolinguistic programming and hypnosis to be able to achieve that kind of state. But it's definitely possible, for sure.
Wow. Okay. So maybe everybody's going to be like, oh, maybe I should be paying attention to this. If I can make my actual hours be that productive, that's a little insane. Because every brain sort of gets, like you said, to a point where we can only do so much and it's not as productive as we were before. Okay. Give me some, because you worked with a lot of startups, like you said before. So give me, if you were to go into a new startup, because there's people that listen to this that either just starting a business that isn't necessarily quantified as a startup. They're not looking for funding or anything like that, but they really want to know what the best information is when they first start. So what would you do with a client, like step 1, step 2, step 3, to try and get their financials and get them on track to really win?
That's a great question. It starts with money for sure. There's a lot of people that believe that when you're a startup, it's okay to overspend. I'm not a believer in overspending. I believe that you need to set a budget. You need to set a budget that's less than the cash you have, and just stick with it. And I'm a huge believer that that you need to make your money work for you. That you don't spend money unless you have it. So that's the way that I've treated all of my companies. And, there's a philosophy that you can't be profitable until you're 5 or 6. But, I was profitable my first year, and it was because I spent less money than was in my budget. So I think getting your numbers down is great. Preparing for taxes, knowing what are tax write-offs and what aren't, and spending your money in that way so that you can have low tax liability. It's pretty crucial as well.
Is there any like examples or anything like that you have that you could share with us of like what this company did and how it helped, or how you saw them grow, or anything like that based on the information?
Let's see. planning is crucial. So I have this amazing workbook. It's about powerfully creating your year. And so this workbook is the tools in it are what every successful company does, but less than 1% of businesses actually apply this. So it's really just startups, business, money. We're all energy. We're all an exchange of energy. Money and business is the exact same thing. So really clearly defining your goals and actually like issue action outcome. Taking steps to go ahead and achieve that and holding yourself accountable is really crucial. And mapping it all out in explicit detail. Companies who map it out and who set goals that will achieve their end goal weekly and hold themselves accountable, like they're, really, really set up to make it happen.
Okay. So is that pretty much what you did when you would go and you would just help set goals monetarily and that sort of thing when you went to try and help someone out?
Yeah, I do. It's so funny. I have a new client and I think it's, in my early 20s, my consulting was definitely more finance based. And, now in my 30s, it's more energetic based. I do a lot of psychology with companies. People have associations with money, and most of the time they're not healthy. And there's, a lot of fear stuff, a lot of programming from childhood and from families, like thinking that you can't have it. And you really have to break that up. So money is kind of a dirty word. And so when I consult with clients, I do a lot of neurolinguistic programming to have them reframe it. And we just talk about money like it's an energy, just like it's an exercise or anything else. And how we usually talk about it is we find out what it means. So the word money, psychologically, what it means for me is freedom. And so when I do consulting for my clients, what does money mean to them? Does it mean vacation? Does it mean house? Does it mean luxury? So we find out what that word is for them that's motivating, and then we don't talk about money anymore. We talk about that word, and that is like a really easy transition for them to get on track and actually start following their goals that they have for themselves.
Interesting. Okay. So you get more psychological even though it's a startup, because it's still a person. I always say that. I think it's funny because you're coaching a person. Like for me, when I do, you're coaching a person. Yes, they have a business, but it's them and their blocks can really hold them back. And that's what it sounds like. What are sort of some of the most common blocks that you hear around money?
I think that it's so subconscious that a lot of it is intuitive. I think a lot of people don't even acknowledge it themselves and can't even access that information because it's so deeply ingrained. So it's just more of like just a general sense that money is dirty and that people that have money are bad. And so you can't, I mean, you can reprogram the person with therapy or neurolinguistic programming, but most people don't want to be reprogrammed. They want to believe they want to believe that they're right. So you have to find a substitution. You have to find out what money really means for a person.
Okay, really interesting. Awesome. Okay, so I know we have to get wrapping up in just a second. So the last question that I always ask for everybody that's listening always hears this all the time. What's one action that listeners can take this week to help move them forward towards their goal of $1 million?
Oh, so what I would love is I was mentioning the 2013 workbook. So any of your readers who email me or go to my website, I'd like to provide it for free to them. So they can go ahead and download that ebook and really create a financial plan for themselves, and just go ahead and follow the exercises in that book so they can get set up for 2013.
Awesome. So yeah, that's actually the next step, was to sort of tell us like where we can find you online and that sort of thing. Can you give out your email address so that way everybody has it? Because I know this is both audio and video. They might be not at the site.
Yeah, so for the workbook, they should email info at Wright Financials.
Okay.
And then online, I'm foodbodymE.com, I'm wrightfinancials.com. I'm lifehypnotherapy.com, and I'm wellness264.com.
Okay.
And I additionally published a nutrition book this week. So that's a really fantastic way to be able to get healthy and jumpstart 2013. So I've got 2 books out. I've got the financial work to get your finances on track, and then the nutrition book to get your health on track.
Everything. You encompass everything. Okay. Finances and health and everything. That's awesome. Thank you so much for coming on the show today, Nicole. We'll definitely link those up in the show notes so everyone can check that out. Have a great day.
Great. Thanks, Jamie.
Just a note, you can download the top 10 tips from these millionaire interviews on the blog.
Thanks for listening. You can find out more great information like this on eventualmillionaire.com.